This is a podcast about one woman's mission to help entrepreneurs and business owners write better business books. Each week, we tackle your writing excuses, because there are excuses too, and help you beat the blank page of doom so that you can write the book that'll grow your life and your business. Now here's your host, Vicky Fraser.
Hello and welcome to the 1000 Authors Show. I'm Vicky Quinn Fraser and this is my husband Joe. What's the matter, Joe?
I'm panicking because I can see myself on the screen as I talk, and that just freaks me out while we record podcasts.
Okay, there we go. Is that better?
Much better, thank you. Jesus.
So this morning it's pretty early. We have tea and neither of us is happy with our hair.
Yeah.
If you're watching this on YouTube, you can probably see why. And if you've seen the picture that I grabbed, then you can probably see why as well. But luckily, I'm going to the hairdresser's tomorrow.
Sadly, I went to the hairdresser's a couple of days ago.
You see, but it looks great. It's just that something weird is happening with that little curl on your forehead, and then...
Well, basically, I've just fallen out of bed and had a quick shower, and here we are recording a podcast.
We are, and we've got tea. We're drinking tea, monkey tea, and it's great.
Oh. I'm not used to this early morning podcasting awake stuff.
Well, so, Joe.
Hello.
What are you reading today at the moment? Not right now.
At the moment, I'm reading things off a Kindle, and on that Kindle, Vicky's Kindle, and on that Kindle, I found A Wizard of Earthsea by Ursula K. Le Guin.
It's great.
Which I think I've read before. All kind of feels familiar. It's kind of
big world.
Yeah, high fantasy wizards and young person discovers his special kind of stuff.
Oh, that's cool.
Which is, yeah, it's quite nice.
I like Ursula K. Le Guin.
Yeah. She writes a slightly more cerebral book than most high fantasy people.
Like David Eddings or someone. I like David Eddings too.
It's cool.
Yeah. But yes. And I am reading, thank you for asking.
What are you reading, Vicky?
I'm reading, as always, I'm reading two books.
Okay.
One fiction, one non-fiction. My fiction book that I'm reading is the final revival of Opal and Nev, which I heard about on a podcast on Layla Saad's Good Ancestor podcast. And she was interviewing Dawnie Walton, who is the author, and it just sounded great. So it's written in a journalistic style, and it's kind of looking back at the career, like at interviews with Opal and Nev, who were kind of punk rockers in the 70s, and Opal is a black woman from the south of the USA, and Nev is a white guy from Birmingham, UK, and how they kind of came together and met, and all of their experiences. It's really good. It's very entertaining, and it's just really cool. It's a good story, and I like anything that gives me an insight into an industry that I don't know that much about, and this is giving me an insight into the music industry.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's really cool.
Question is, what are we going to do about the distraught cat that is trapped outside the door?
You probably should let her in. Can you hear that, pod fans? Better let her in. We'll be right back. While Joe lets whiskey in, I will tell you about the other book that I'm reading, which is called The Elements of Eloquence by Mark Forsyth. And he's quite well known as a wordy dude.
Okay.
He's written the and I cannot say this, he's written the Etymologicon. That's probably not Etymologicon.
Probably not Etymologicon.
But I think it should be.
He wrote
the Etymologicon. And so he is all about language and words and all the rest of it. And this particular book, I've only just started it, but it's broken down into the figures of rhetoric, which is all about turns of phrase and how to write better, basically, how to write a more engaging phrase. And he's talking a lot about Shakespeare and Dickens and how Shakespeare stole everything, but then made it better. He didn't just steal stuff, he made it better.
Okay.
So first, I'm only on chapter 1 at the moment, so I literally started it yesterday, and chapter 1 is alliteration. And we all love a little alliteration. We do. For some reason, our brains like the...
Is it flick the same switch as music?
Probably does, actually. Yeah, it probably is to do with music and beat and tempo and that kind of thing.
Fiddles with the same brain bean.
The same brain bean. Fiddling with your brain beans. You know what? That needs to be the title of a book. I need to write this shit down, because as soon as we finish recording, I'm going to forget everything. So, hang on. I'm literally going to write it down in my notebook. Fiddling Joe, talk.
So yesterday we made a bench. What's going on at the Dingle?
Yeah.
What is going on at the Dingle? We made a bench to go with our
Great,
massive outdoor table yesterday.
Yeah. Carry on. I'm drinking my tea. It's nice.
It was very lovely, and it's now an enormous bench to go with our enormous table.
Yeah. We're going to lower the table a bit.
What else is going on? Oh, we had some red mites with the chickens, so we've completely cleaned them out entirely.
We had a fox attack.
We had a fox attack.
You weren't here.
I was not here.
Oh my gosh. So I was in my office, and I heard a giant kerfuffle. I mean, the chickens sometimes make kerfuffles anyway, usually when it's like, I have laid an egg! Or just sometimes because they feel like it.
Or a sheep is skittling them around or something.
Yeah, but this one did not. This one sounded like real. So I kind of, if you can imagine the Chariots of Fire music playing, and me kind of sprinting whilst putting on shoes. And I got there to find like all of the chickens making themselves super tall and screaming, and the sheep just standing there like, and then a massive pile of feathers.
Yikes.
And I was just like, no. And
then you counted the chickens?
Counted the chickens. There were 8 chickens, which is the number they were supposed to be, and 1 very, very lucky Rita chicken. Oh, so yes.
She's lost a few tail feathers, but she's all right.
She's all right, yeah. She had a bit of a droopy wing for a few days, but yeah, she is a very lucky chicken. So and there's been a few people in the village lost chickens this week, so they have been mostly locked away this week, which they haven't been terribly happy about, but it's better than being eaten. They did come out yesterday, and we also had last week. He went away on Saturday, went home on Saturday. Scooter the guinea pig was a house guest, and he was adorable. And I spent the week being very anxious after that fox attack because he was spending time outside in his run, and I was just like every 5 minutes I was like, are you okay?
Because Scooter was pretty much a good meal for a fox.
Sitting duck. Yeah, the cats paid no attention to him.
Okay, good timing.
Thanks. So yeah, my tea's really good. I can't be interrupted with my tea.
Okay.
I love my tea. Okay, so I thought this week I would abandon my podcast plan yet again. Clearly I don't want to talk about the thing that I've planned, so I'm not gonna. But I thought this week we would talk about, because it occurred to me that if you've never written a book before, and even if you have written a book before, but definitely if you've never written a book before, you probably don't know what kind of professionals that can help you can do. Mm-hmm. And so today I wanted to talk about developmental or structural edits.
Okay.
Which is a service that, well, it's a service that I provide. It's a service that lots of other people provide, but it's probably, and I wanted to talk about it because it's probably the most important part of, after you've actually like got the words down on paper, it's probably the most important part of your entire book. And there's a few ways you can do it. You can bring in somebody like me, and I've actually done 3 of these this summer. So it's obviously been a bit of a flurry of people writing books, which is really cool. Maybe feeling a bit more optimistic about the world, which is nice. So yeah, you can get a professional in. You can get people to help you in terms of beta readers, which is what I normally do. That's what I did with my last book. Or you can do it yourself. And there is nothing wrong with doing it yourself at all. I think it's more difficult to do it yourself, which is why I always get help of some kind.
Sure. Because
you're kind of in it and you can't see the bigger picture. And that is exactly what developmental editing is really looking at the bigger picture. So do you know what developmental editing is?
So I would assume that if I
just want to drink my tea.
I can tell. If I sat down to write my book, I would put myself a plan together.
You might do. Yeah.
I would have an idea of kind of where I wanted to go. Mm-hmm. Then I would sit down for a couple of months and just spam words onto paper. And then I would look at it and go, nah.
Yeah, I think that noise pretty much sums up what a lot of people, they don't necessarily make that noise at me, but it's some variation of that noise when they come to me and they're like,
not quite sure what to do next. No, It needs something. No, it's not quite right. What do I do now? And
this is it. And it's like, that is perfectly normal. It's like you have, and also there's an element of, I've just written like 40,000 words or however many words you've written, which is a fantastic undertaking. Mm-hmm. And then you're like, oh my God, there's so much more work left to do. And it can feel a little bit soul destroying. So, which is why I definitely, if you're going to do it yourself, walk away from your first draft for a couple of weeks.
And there's like unclear work needs doing as well, isn't it? If without advice, it's just you need to do some stuff.
Yeah, it's like I have literally just emptied my brain, and maybe done a little bit of editing as I went along, because some people do that. But either way, even if you've done some editing as you've gone along, it's still going to need looking at, because there is nobody ever writes a fully formed book. There is just no such thing. So yeah, and there is an element of people sort of being like, I don't know where to start, I don't know what to do, and I don't even know how to, I don't even know how to start really. So I just wanted to kind of run through what developmental / structural editing is, give people an idea of how they can get started themselves, what they might want to look for if they're using beta readers, and how a developmental editor like me would work with their manuscript. So first of all, what is developmental editing? It is a high level structural review of what you've got. It's all about what you're saying, and getting the message across. And it can be extremely, extremely useful for the author. They can help you figure out what your topic is, what your big idea is, make sure that your big idea is clear. Because one of the things that often happens is you've got this big idea and then you wander off in other directions. So it's like wander
off the path and
they can make sure that the outline and plan you've got is really tight. Or maybe the whole structure will need straightening out as well. And I usually come into the picture with my clients when the writer has finished their rough draft. So it might be the end of the like really rough first draft, or it might be they might have gone through and done a little bit of editing and polishing and tidying and stuff like that. I don't usually come in. I can help people come up with a good outline, and that's a separate service I offer. But for this, I normally come in after at least the first draft is done. And yeah, and here is how I work and what I do with my structural reviews. Excuse me. So I will have my clients send me their manuscript in PDF format with the table of contents. Need a table of contents. That's very useful for me. If it doesn't come with one, I send it back and say, please can you send us with a table of contents of some kind. I also send out a detailed questionnaire, asking them all about why they're writing the book, all of that kind of stuff, who they're writing it for, and all the rest of it.
Because the final form of the book is dependent on what they're trying to achieve with the book.
Exactly, yeah. And I will also have had like a face-to-face or a Zoom conversation or whatever as well. And so sometimes it seems like I'm getting people to repeat what they've already told me in the questionnaire, but I get them to do it anyway, because writing stuff down is different from speaking it out loud, and it makes you think about it a little bit more. So I get people to do a questionnaire as well. And then I will read the manuscript. I'll just read it all the way through, and I'll scribble some notes and all the rest of it. But then I will go through it again with the view of like actually writing all over it. And I will identify holes or gaps in the content. So, for example, I've been working with somebody over the last week or so, and they have, it's great, it's going to be a great book. There are a couple of stories where they've just like referred to it in passing, and I've been like, this is a really big deal, because I can tell it's a really big deal, but then there's no more details about it. The story kind of isn't there. So that's what I mean when it's like identify holes or gaps in the content. It's like, okay, well, that story needs telling. Or don't mention it at all. Or it might be that there is a hole in the argument. If you're writing more of a thought piece, it might be that you've got this thought process, but then there's a gap missing, like a research gap or something.
What about that?
Yeah, exactly. So that's the first thing that I will be looking for. I will also be looking at the structure and the flow of the book as well. So does it actually flow? How does it actually need to fit together?
Does it make sense?
Quite often people will start their writing in chronological order, which is a really sensible way to start, but that might not be the best way for the book to be, because it might not be the most impactful way to write it. And sometimes it's higgledy-piggledy, that it needs to be chronological so that you can understand what's going on. I will also check for consistency in ideas and tone, which is really important. So like, have you contradicted yourself in chapter 5? Has the tone changed? Which is often a sign of you've done some research and then you've unconsciously kind of
absorbed that style a little bit.
Absorbed that style a little bit, yeah. And it's not deliberate plagiarism or anything like that, because we all do it, but this is why you need to go back and check. And it's like, how, why does this piece sound different from this piece? Sometimes it's like you're in a bad mood when you wrote a different piece, but it needs to be consistent. And it's like that's not to say it needs to be one emotional level all the way through, but it needs to be the same voice all the way through.
Sure. And I guess as well, as people grow and develop and get better at writing, if this is your first book, your first 10,000 words,
it's not going to be as good.
It's not going to be as good as the last 10,000 words.
Yeah.
That might be the biggest lump of what writing you've done in decades.
Yeah, and that is a really good point. That is also a reason why, consistency of ideas and also your ideas will change as well, because people don't realize this, but you will change as you write your book. Like your opinions about what you're writing will probably change, because you will learn a lot about yourself and your subject as you are writing it. Yeah. Like no matter how expert you are. So that's also really interesting. So then, you might start with your hypothesis at the beginning of the book, and by the end of it might have shifted slightly, and that's fine, but you just need to be aware of that.
Yeah, and you might need somebody else to spot that for you.
Yeah, and you don't even need to change the beginning of it, but you do need to weave into the book how your ideas have changed so that it's...
Sure.
So that it makes sense.
So that it's consistent.
Yeah. So... okay, what else do I do? I make sure there are no grey areas, lack of clarity, that kind of thing. And that's usually a sign of you've had this idea and it's kind of like, I'm just going to write it down, and then you haven't had time to come back to it and gone into it in detail, or you're not sure. Maybe you need to go do a little bit more research.
Yeah.
But lack of clarity is usually can be a sign of lack of confidence. It can just be a sign of, you were in a rush, or you've just forgotten to do a little bit more on that piece.
Yeah.
I will also find the ideas and topics that you need to expand on. So I've already kind of touched on that a little bit. It's like, if you've mentioned a story, I think, who was it? Was it Hemingway who said, probably wasn't Hemingway, it's somebody else who said, if there was a shotgun on the wall in the first scene, it had better have gone off by the third scene.
Sure.
So yeah, you're looking at, have you mentioned something that you've just dropped in and not come back to? Does it need to be there? Do you need to expand on it? And then in the second pass, because it's at least a 2-stage process for me, because it's not like I used to just do a high level review and send it back, and I've now changed what I do. So I do like a full developmental edit, and it comes back, and then we will look at it in a bit more detail once you've gone through. And,
once the author's gone and done what you've asked them to do.
Yeah, the big structural changes and the big ideas, and made sure that it all makes sense. Then we come back and we have a look at sentence syntax and sentence structure and tone, and just generally improving the writing, like making the writing better. And yeah, just making it better. And I don't do proofreading because that is a skill in and of itself, because by the time I get to the end of this process, I will be too close to the damn thing as well. So you really need to get a proofreader involved. Maybe a line editor as well, which is something different, and we'll talk about that in another podcast episode. But yeah, this is about the big picture and taking your kind of raw mishmash of words and turning it into something that is, tight and structured and really, a really great book. Does that make sense? And it's also a collaborative process as well. So I don't just take it off you and do it all. That's not my role. I mean, there are people out there who will do that. I don't do that. It's not something that I enjoy. I really enjoy helping people improve. This for me, this is as much about improving you as a writer as it is about creating a great book. And so that's why I don't take books off people, edit them and give them back, because that's...
Here's your finished article.
Yeah, that for me is not as exciting.
Sure.
And I don't think it does. I mean, there are some people, it's like if you're not interested in improving your writing, and I can't imagine many people wouldn't be, but if that's not one of your goals, then there are people out there who will do an amazing job of editing your book in your voice. And, that would be great. But I think the people that I want to work with, they're usually interested in doing more than one book. They're interested in becoming better writers and communicators.
Sure.
And so that's why I do it like this. So it's a real collaborative process. It's like, I'm going to help you see, where your ideas aren't perhaps as clear as they could be, where you might have wandered off on a tangent, where you don't need to, and where you can just become a better writer and improve your writing and your communication skills and make your book more saleable as well. So yeah, it can be quite a challenging process, I think, because there are going to be parts of the book that people are like, I really like this part, and I'm like, I think that needs to come out.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean you need to like destroy it, use it somewhere else. But maybe it just doesn't have...
Goes in your next book, or it's blogs or emails or whatever.
Exactly. So that's how my structural / developmental edits work. And I do, by the way, have space for another one in October. So if you are nearing the end of your first draft and you're like, I don't know what to do, then get in touch.
Cool.
Because I have a space. I can do one of these every 6 to 8 weeks. And I will have finished one in August. So end of August. And I love doing them. They're really good fun. Okay, so you can also, you can work with somebody like me, or you can get beta readers, and they will help you to do a similar thing. It will not be that kind of comprehensive thing, but what
won't be quite so coherent, perhaps.
No, but what it will be, and this is what I do. We've talked about beta readers in a past episode that I will get somebody to link to in the show notes. Who knows where it is? Because I don't know.
Who the hell knows?
It's probably a long way back. But yeah, so beta. What I normally do is I will write my first draft. I will edit it because nobody wants to see my shitty first draft, and I will send it out to a group of people who have volunteered to read it for me and come back with their thoughts. And when I did that with How the Hell Do You Write a Book, that was incredibly valuable because I ended up switching the whole structure of the thing. So a couple of people came back and said, actually, for me, writing the book starts way before that. And so I'd kind of started with the outline and then put the mindset stuff later. And I ended up starting with the mindset stuff and kind of, getting the prep work done. So that was really, really useful. I ended up adding a couple of extra chapters. I took one out because people were like, this feels like too much. So yeah, it was really, really useful. So they'll come back and you'll get all sorts of different opinions from people. And you have to remember that they are just opinions. Some of them will be absolutely worth taking on board and doing. Others, you can discard them. You can say, thank you very much. But, it's your book. And if you're like, and that's the same for people with my developmental edit as well. It's like, you might not, you might not agree with everything that I say. That's up to you. You're the client. It's your book. And sometimes they're right. It's cool. And like, there's an example of that from just recently. So I had made a couple of suggestions and the writer came back and said, oh, actually, this is why I put it in, da, 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 da. And when she explained it further, I was like, cool, that makes perfect sense. Do it like that. Because it was that, because if you don't have enough information about, then that's what it's like, that's part of what I do is like that identifying holes and gaps.
But yeah, that process then
pushes the writer
let them know that there was something that
it wasn't quite right.
Wasn't clear.
Yeah, and this is why I love doing that, because it's like it's not me telling somebody what to do and how to do it, although there is an element of that. It's more pushing the writer to think about how they've written it, why they want it to be this way, what's missing, and then, they might come back and say, actually, this is here because of this. And it's like, great, well, we're going to do this to make it fit or make it better. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I love doing these processes. But yeah, beta readers are really, really cool. They will help you as well. And if you have a very tiny budget or no budget, then beta readers are your way to go. And if you want to do it yourself, then my top tips are number one, make some kind of a chronological timeline, even if your book isn't going to be written chronologically. And I've just got somebody to do this. Especially if your book is a book of personal essays that are fitting in somehow to a memoir style, mm-hmm. make some kind of a chronological timeline so that you know where everything fits. And then have a think about, and you can just you can print stuff off and use Post-it notes and and you move stuff around. But that's a good place to start.
Red wall and pins. Red
wall and pins, yeah, like you're solving a murder investigation. Yeah. Second thing that I recommend that you do is revisit your outline, because a lot of the time people will make an outline at the beginning or near the beginning and then they'll forget about it. You need to revisit your outline and check that it hasn't changed, and it will have changed for sure. And then you need to have a look and see what you've got. How does that relate to the outline that I've got? How does it need to change? What makes sense? What needs to move? So that's where you're looking at the higher level structure.
Being the expert that I am, I think there's a thing you need to do before that.
Oh, go on.
Before any of that, I think you need to put the book down and gain a bit of space.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because if you go straight from writing the thing to reviewing your writing, you're going to be in the same mindset, you're going to feel the same way, you're going to have the same thoughts. And I think you need to get a bit of space and come back to it with a fresh brain.
Yeah, I recommend actually putting it in a drawer or whatever and walking away from it for at least 2 weeks. Just don't think about it, because you'll be churning it over in your head anyway, subconsciously. But yeah, just walk away from it and do something else, because apart from anything else, you'll probably be sick of the sight of it by then anyway. And that's no frame of mind to start editing in, because you won't do a very good job. So yeah, walk away from it. Go back to your outline. Revisit your outline, make sure it all fits, and then go through and look at how your ideas and structure flows. Go back to where your reader starts, where you're taking them, and where you need to stop along the way. And that is a really good place for you to start with your developmental edit.
Cool.
Yeah. And if you would like my eyeballs on your draft and you want to work with me, I would love to have a chat with you. And you can book a free call with me. There's a link in the show notes to have a chat, or you can email me, Vicky@vickyfraser.com, and we will have a chat about your book and what I can maybe do for you.
Cool.
Yeah. Right then. Thank you very much for listening, everyone. This is episode 33, but I don't know. I'm going to have a look actually. What episode are we on?
Oh my goodness. I have no idea.
We are on episode 269. Can you believe it?
That is a lot of podcasts.
269. You know what? I was thinking the other day, I was like, I don't know how many more of these I can do. And then I thought, no, because we haven't actually talked in detail about the parts of writing before. So there's at least a little mini-series on that. And then I'll rethink it.
Okay.
Right. Thank you for listening, everyone. If you've enjoyed this podcast episode, please go and rate us and review us.
5 stars.
Share us with your friends. Subscribe to us wherever you get your podcast from. That would be amazing. And write and tell us how you're getting on. Have you got any questions? Listener questions. We would love to answer your questions. What topics would you like us to cover on this podcast? Tell us.
Absolutely.
Because I'm running out of ideas. I'm not really. Yeah, and that's that. We're going to be back same time next week, probably.
Probably.
Maybe.
More or less.
And I'm now going to go and make more tea.
Excellent.
Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you to Podfly for, as usual, doing a wonderful job editing. And thank you to Harriet, my beautiful assistant, for making my life much easier.
Hi, Harriet.
And for sorting out all of the gubbins that goes with this podcast.
Lovely.
Yeah, and thank you to you. And thank you to Whiskey, who has been very helpful this morning.
Yes.
And yeah. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. You can find links and show notes on the website at moxiebooks.co.uk/podcast, where you can also sign up for the best daily emails in the multiverse and find loads of free resources to help you write your book. We'll be back the same time next week with more tales from the book writing trenches and the latest on what the tiny sheeps have been up to.